Come on, let's go. Get in quickly.
Our family was busy preparing for my sister Amelia's move abroad for her studies. On the morning of her departure, I was abruptly woken up by my mom, who hurried me into a taxi. What? I thought we were leaving in 3 hours. Confused by the sudden change in schedule, I sat silently in the taxi, unable to say anything.
Huh?
Even though Mom was in such a rush, neither Amelia nor Dad were in the taxi. All right, please go ahead. However, Mom, who got in the taxi after me, didn't seem to care and the taxi started moving. The place we arrived at wasn't the airport, but my grandparents' house. Mom dragged me out of the taxi and rang the doorbell of my grandparents' house. My grandparents were completely shocked to see their daughter-in-law and granddaughter appear so early in the morning without any notice. But Mom didn't seem to care. Taking this child along is pointless, so I'm leaving her here, she declared and threw my luggage into the grandparents' house. Then, as she quickly got back into the taxi, all right, please take care of her. Unless it's a matter of life or death, don't contact me, she said and drove away. I was left standing there, stunned, as my world went dark. So, does being deaf mean I'm a burden? I thought that, despite my disability, we'd eventually understand each other as a family. The despair I felt at that moment was even more painful and heartbreaking than the day I lost my hearing as a child.
I never thought she could do something so cruel. But from now on, you can truly do what you love, Charlotte.
Grandma Sophia said this as she gently hugged my shoulders. I had things I loved to do, but it's impossible for someone like me. It's okay, Charlotte, you'll see. You can do it. Grandma kept encouraging me with her warm, embracing smile. My name is Charlotte Smith, 22 years old. I live with my grandparents, who have been my benefactors, while working at a job I love. Although I'm living a fulfilling life now, my childhood was far from smooth sailing. I started living with my grandparents when I was 13. Before that, I lived with my parents and my sister Amelia, who is 2 years older than me. In our family, starting at the age of 3, it was mandatory to begin piano and violin lessons. This was an unchangeable rule. The lessons were 7 times a week. Initially, they were 30 minutes each, but gradually increased to 45 minutes, then an hour. Before I knew it, my days were filled with music, leaving no time to play with friends outside of kindergarten. However, I never disliked it. Because I was always compared to my 2-year older sister Amelia, I was driven by the desire to surpass her one day. Moreover, I genuinely loved music. Once, I asked my parents if I could skip a lesson.
This time, my friend is having a birthday party. They said I can come. So can I skip the lesson on Friday?
Having never met friends outside of kindergarten, I was excited and asked my parents with joy. Dad, with a smile,
invited to a birthday party? That's great,
he replied, which I took as permission to go. I felt increasingly excited.
Yeah. We get to eat cake together and stuff,
I remember answering enthusiastically. I had never been this happy since I started kindergarten. However, the next words from Mom would quickly plunge my feelings from heaven to hell.
There's no way you're skipping your lessons. Stop talking nonsense and eat quickly. You'll have less practice time after dinner.
What? But Dad just said,
skipping lessons is not allowed. And you, don't confuse Charlotte with your words.
Yeah, sorry. I left more than half of my dinner uneaten that day. Naturally, I couldn't focus on practice after dinner and got scolded by Mom 3 times as much as usual. As you can see from this episode, the one who held the reins in our house was Mom. Mom had dreamed of becoming a musician when she was young. However, she couldn't fulfill that dream and placed that hope on Amelia and me. Looking back now, Mom's expectations of us were abnormal. She enrolled us in a kindergarten affiliated with a music college, and after coming home, we had private lessons and self-practice 7 days a week. Instead of family vacations, we attended performances of famous public orchestras, and for birthdays or Christmas, we received CDs of renowned musicians or new music scores. Moreover, the living room was renovated into a lesson room, where we spent almost all our time except for eating, bathing, and sleeping. If we wanted to watch TV or read a book, we had to reduce mistakes in self-practice and finish the practice on time. But it was almost impossible to finish on time, so the days we got what we wished for were very few. I liked playing the piano more than watching TV, so it wasn't too hard for me, but Amelia struggled every day just to watch TV. However, she rarely succeeded and would shed tears of frustration when Mom wasn't looking. Seeing Amelia like that, I began to think, I have to get better for Amelia's sake, and I focused even more on my lessons. One day, when I was 4.5, Mom suddenly said, "Amelia is more suited for the violin, so we'll stop her piano lessons at the end of this month. Instead, Charlotte will focus only on the piano from next month. If you master different instruments, you can aim for gold medals as a duo, and it will be glamorous when you become famous." She decided our paths without consulting us. I loved the piano, so I didn't mind, but Amelia, who also loved the piano, was quite shocked. Still, it wasn't allowed for us to voice our opinions to Mom. We just silently ran on the track laid out by Mom. An incident happened in our house when I was 5 years old. One morning I woke up with swollen cheeks and a high fever. I had contracted mumps.
Getting mumps at such a crucial time before the competition. Well, as long as your fever goes down, you can still do self-practice.
Thinking that way, Mom locked me in the lesson room for self-practice as soon as she confirmed that my fever had gone down with antipyretics. I feel dizzy and can't play well. But if I don't do it properly, I'll get scolded again. At that time, I couldn't even tell Mom about my health issues. A few days later, after my fever spiked again, an unbelievable change occurred in my body. Huh? Is Amelia not practicing today? One day, when I woke up, the house was completely silent. There was not even a single sound. Overwhelmed by an inexplicable sense of dread, I rushed down from my room on the second floor to the living room where the practice room was located. Strangely enough, there was not a single sound during this time. It felt like a horror movie, filled with a creeping fear, as I burst open the door to the practice room. And there, I found them.
"Charlotte, please keep quiet during practice."
Mom and Amelia were there, practicing as usual. Mom looked very angry at me for running down the stairs in such a hurry. However, her angry words didn't reach my ears at all. Because at that moment, I had completely lost my hearing. Noticing my strange reaction, Mom immediately sensed something was wrong and took me to the hospital. The diagnosis revealed that I had developed severe hearing loss as a rare after-effect of mumps. After the mumps were cured, my hearing improved slightly, but I still needed people to speak loudly and clearly for me to understand. Communicating with family and friends became difficult, and I couldn't hear the piano sounds I loved, plunging me into deep despair. But more than my own despair, Mom was devastated.
"I never imagined something like this would happen. But since it has, we have no choice. We'll just have to give up on Charlotte." "Give up? What do you mean by give up?" "From now on, we'll focus all our efforts on Amelia. Luckily, we have 2 daughters. Even if Charlotte can't make it, as long as Amelia becomes a professional, it will be fine." "I see. I understand." I'll follow your opinion.
Soon after, I was forced to quit the piano that I loved so much. Without practice sessions, I was free, but with almost no hearing, I couldn't enjoy watching TV or playing with friends. And above all, not being allowed to touch the piano I loved was the hardest thing to bear. The following year, I was not accepted into the private elementary school I had planned to attend and was enrolled in a public school for the deaf. From here, I became a burden to my family. Mom attended all of Amelia's school events but ignored all of mine. When attendance was unavoidable, she would send my paternal grandparents to maintain appearances. But this was the least of it. Mom avoided taking me along for hotel stays for Amelia's competitions, our annual family trips which became concert attendances, and even daily outings like dining out. She constantly passed me off to my grandparents. My grandparents always welcomed me warmly, making sure I didn't feel miserable. In such a family environment, of course, no one in my family learned sign language for me. Unable to communicate with my family, I became increasingly isolated and withdrawn. The only ones who worried about me and helped me were, again, my grandparents. They attended sign language classes with me and learned sign language. Additionally, Grandma Sophia secretly learned lip reading and taught it to me. Thanks to their dedicated support, by the time I graduated from elementary school, I could manage to have conversations even with people who didn't know sign language. Around this time, I began to love my grandparents more than my real parents and wanted to cherish them above all. What solidified the rift between my parents and me was when Amelia was 15 and I was 13.
I knew Amelia could do it. These days, it's crucial for musicians to have international experience. That's why we cut back on her lesson time to make her learn Italian. Now, the path to becoming a musician is finally open.
On the night we received the acceptance letter from the overseas school, Mom was more cheerful than usual as she praised Amelia and announced that we would be moving abroad in a few months. This was the first time I learned that Amelia was planning to study abroad and that we would move once she was accepted. I can't believe they didn't tell me something this important. I can't read lips in Italian. Is sign language the same overseas? I won't be able to see Grandpa and Grandma anymore. As worry and anxiety piled up, I also felt a strange sense of relief. But at least they consider me part of the family. That's good. Thanks to my grandparents, I had developed a resilient spirit in the face of adversity, and I vaguely felt that everything would work out somehow. I thought, I can visit my grandparents once I become independent, and was able to face the move positively. A few months later, on the early morning of our departure day,
Charlotte, wake up! We're leaving! What? No way! Did I oversleep?
It was the first time since I lost my hearing that Mom had to wake me up. At that moment, I mistakenly thought I was 4 years old again, oversleeping for my morning practice, and I jumped out of bed in a panic. But I quickly realized it was just a misunderstanding.
You won't wake up unless I talk this loud?
My throat hurts. Come on, get ready quickly. We're leaving. Mom said this irritably, slamming the door behind her as she left. Her gaze lacked any expectation, affection, or concern for me.
When I was a child, she used to look at me with such shining eyes.
Living up to Mom's expectations had been very tough, but in any form, the love and attention she gave me back then felt strangely nostalgic and precious. As I looked around the empty room, I let myself reminisce a little about my childhood. Then, taking a deep breath, I slowly stood up. I'll find something new in the new place. I'll become someone Mom can be proud of again. As I put on the clothes I had prepared, I made a quiet resolution. However, my feelings were shattered in the next moment.
Come on, let's go. Get in.
When I went downstairs with my luggage, Mom, holding only her handbag, was waiting by the front door.
What? Wasn't the departure 3 hours later?
Though puzzled by the significantly different schedule from what I had been told, I was too scared to talk to the obviously irritated Mom. I was pushed into the waiting taxi outside. Huh? No one's here? Despite all the rushing, Amelia and Dad were not in the taxi.
Okay, let's go.
But Mom, who got in after me, didn't seem to care and had the taxi drive off. The place we arrived at was not the airport, but my grandparents' house. Charlotte, get out. You'll be living here, so unload your luggage and wait. Mom's words and actions at that moment gave me a bad feeling.
No way. You must be kidding. This is too cruel.
Hoping that the thoughts running through my head were just my imagination, I was too shocked to move. But Mom didn't care and pulled me out of the taxi, ringing the doorbell at my grandparents' house. Early in the morning, without any notice, the son's wife and grandchild just appeared, and the two of them were simply stunned. However, Mom didn't seem to mind.
This child is pointless to bring along, so I'm leaving her here,
she declared, throwing my belongings into my grandparents' house. Then, quickly getting into the taxi.
All right, please take care of her. Unless it's a matter of life or death, don't contact me.
With just those words, she drove away. And indeed, they moved overseas, just the three of them.
Does being deaf mean I'm a burden? Is it because I can't become a musician that I'm being abandoned?
Even though my beloved piano was taken away, even though I could no longer have proper conversations, even though I was no longer taken out, I thought we would eventually understand each other because we were family. Just earlier, I had decided to try my best once more to gain Mom's approval. The despair at that moment was more painful and sad than the day I lost my hearing. However, I didn't sink into depression again. That was thanks to my grandma, Sophia.
I never thought she could do something so awful. But from now on, Charlotte, you can truly do what you love.
What I love?
Yes. Not because someone tells you to, but because Charlotte wants to do it. You had something you wanted to do, right?
I did, but it's impossible for someone like me.
It's okay. Charlotte, you'll see. You can do it,
Grandma said, encouraging me with a gentle and encompassing smile. Encouraged by Grandma, I started playing the piano again. The sound of the piano, which I had not been allowed to touch for years, stimulated my remaining hearing to the fullest.
I want to play the piano again. Just like back then.
My shrunken heart exploded with growth. And from that moment on, my days filled with piano began again. 9 years later, I was a senior at a music college. Although it had been more challenging than usual to get in, I felt a sense of fulfillment and joy in a life where I loved music and could talk about it with friends who shared my passion. Also, since entering college, I had ventured into songwriting and composing, discovering the joy of learning music from new perspectives.
When I was abandoned at my grandparents' house at 13, I felt like I had hit rock bottom, but thinking of it as the trigger that made me who I am now, it's not so painful.
I gained enough strength and confidence to think this way. Everything was going smoothly. Then one day, something unexpected happened. Mom, who had been out of touch for years, appeared before me. Just like when she abandoned me 9 years ago, she suddenly showed up at my university without any notice. And when she saw me, she beamed with a completely different smile.
Charlotte! Congratulations on winning the international piano competition. You really are my child.
She started to gush. I was bewildered and couldn't use sign language or speak. Then, Mom, misunderstanding something, grabbed my hands tightly. Sorry to surprise you. I flew over as soon as I heard about you on the news." Saying this, she tried to hug me. I instinctively rejected it with all my strength. Mom let out a small "Huh?" but quickly returned to her beaming smile.
"Thank you so much for fulfilling my dream of becoming a musician. Charlotte, you're amazing. From now on, I'll fully support you. I'll help with both work and personal life. Let's live together from now on,"
she said, approaching me. Mom's strange gaze pierced through me. I felt a chill run down my spine for the first time in my life. Just as I was desperately wishing to escape, I felt a gentle tap on my shoulder from behind. When I turned around, there was my college friend, standing with a worried expression. Using sign language, my friend asked, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" I replied in sign language, "I'm troubled by a stranger talking to me. Can you walk me home?" My friend nodded vigorously, stepping between Mom and me. "We have plans to go out, so excuse us," she told Mom, then took my hand and led me away from the scene. Mom is likely still unfamiliar with sign language. She stood there in stunned silence.
Was Mom always this weird?
Thanks to living apart, I finally realized just how abnormal my mother was at this age. And for the first time, I felt I never wanted to be involved with her again. However, contrary to my feelings, a few days later, Mom showed up at my grandparents' house with Dad and Amelia in tow. "I'm sorry I startled you the other day. Actually, we're planning to return to America soon, so Charlotte, you'll be living with us from now on," Mom said, smiling brightly but still using her authoritative tone. Behind her, Dad stood weakly, and Amelia had her shoulders hunched, just like before. Pretending not to understand what she was saying, I remained silent on purpose. Then Mom started praising me out of nowhere. But the content was bizarre, talking about how my childhood's elite education bore fruit or how I inherited her genes, which allowed my talents to flourish even from afar. To make matters worse, she belittled Amelia, saying she failed at the violin and wasn't good at piano either, thus had no talent, calling it a waste of time and money. This kind of talk went on for over 10 minutes, and eventually, Amelia broke down in tears. Seeing Amelia like that brought back painful memories of when I lost my hearing at 5 and had my piano taken away. I felt a deep anger towards Mom, who was manipulating our lives for her own values. But Mom, too, was growing irritated by my silence. Still, she must have wanted to stay on my good side. With a creepy smile that only touched her lips, she started typing something on her phone. The screen read,
"You're the best musician. That's why I came to get you."
I deliberately responded in sign language.
"I won't go with you."
Unable to understand sign language, Mom forced a smile, her mouth twitching. She showed me the screen again, now saying,
"Let's go home together."
With a sigh, I typed on my phone, "I'm staying here because I'm worried about grandparents." Mom's smile vanished at my unsatisfactory response. But a few seconds later, she seemed to realize something and smiled again. Turning to Grandma next to me, she made an unbelievable suggestion.
"That's it. We'll leave Amelia here from now on. That way, Charlotte can focus on her music and I can fully support her. Amelia can finally be useful to the family. Mother, could you tell Charlotte that with Amelia here, there's nothing to worry about?"
When Mom made her selfish proposal, I felt something snap inside me.
Stop saying selfish things. I don't need support from a mother who abandoned me, and I have no intention of leaving this house. Don't ever show your face in front of us again.
Before I knew it, I was shouting at Mom for the first time in my life. Mom, who had assumed no one could hear the conversation, and everyone else in the room fell silent for a moment. But even then, Mom didn't back down at all.
What? You don't need support? That's impossible. Because you are my daughter. You are going to become a great musician with me. And pretending you can't hear, too. You're not a child anymore, so stop being selfish. I'm not pretending. I read the conversation from your lip movements. And not learning sign language to live with someone who is deaf is out of the question. Besides, you abandoned me 9 years ago, so don't act like a mother now. How dare you say that to your parent? It's your grandparents' fault. Fine, I'll correct that foul mouth of yours. Come on. Pack your things quickly. I'm not planning to live with you, and I have no intention of getting involved with you in the future. Please leave. There you go again. Fine, I'll pack your things myself.
Mom, realizing she couldn't persuade me, started forcing her way into the house. I desperately tried to stop Mom, who was no longer capable of making rational decisions. Then, Grandma, who had been silently watching, stood in front of Mom with a phone in hand. With a slightly intimidating voice, she said,
"If you insist on entering the house, I'll call the police for trespassing. And maybe file a restraining order too."
Grandma, who I had only ever seen smiling gently, looked shockingly stern at that moment. Even Mom seemed to snap out of it. She sat down weakly. Why? Why is it turning out like this? And began to cry. Everyone, including Amelia and even Dad, just watched silently. In the end, Grandpa scolded Dad, saying,
"You're making a fuss, so go home."
Then, Dad, with Amelia's help, dragged Mom away. I wondered what Dad thought of us. Watching Dad's exhausted back as he left, a thought crossed my mind, but I felt like I would never get a chance to ask him. Grandma gently patted my shoulder with her usual gentle smile.
"Do you remember when I said you'd understand someday?"
she asked. I nodded slightly and said, "Yes." Then Grandma, with a faraway look in her eyes, said, "That is now. Children are not tools for their parents. Forcing them to do something almost never leads to success. You always had a talent for music. Even though you became deaf and faced difficulties, I believed you would overcome them because you're a hard worker." "Thank you, Grandma." I hugged Grandma tightly and cried just a little. I felt truly grateful to be their grandchild. It was a moment when I thought that from the bottom of my heart. Even after that, Mom persistently visited us, but we never responded. No matter how cold we were, Mom's desire for me to become a musician only seemed to grow stronger, as if it were worsening. One day, Dad unexpectedly visited my grandparents' house. When Grandpa asked, "Is something wrong?" Dad, looking worn out, replied,
"I'm looking for Amelia."
After Grandpa pressed for more details, he found out that Amelia's situation had become even more dire than before.
"You can't even participate in the competition."
"I'm sorry, Mom. I'm really sorry."
"I've dedicated my money, my time, my entire life. So why aren't you a musician yet?"
Mom, who is obsessed with Amelia becoming a musician, had started to harshly scold Amelia for not showing any results. Amelia, who had endured more than enough until now, finally reached her breaking point with this latest incident. And then one day, she eloped with a man who had been coming in and out of our house as a piano tuner.
"She's only known him for a few months. She'll only end up suffering if she ran off with a man she hardly knows. That's why I thought I'd bring her back and talk some sense into her."
Dad seemed genuinely worried about Amelia in his own way. But when I heard this story, I felt a strange sense of relief. I hope this means Amelia can finally start her own life. That's what I found myself thinking. In the end, Amelia remains missing to this day. Though it's very worrying not being able to confirm her safety, I can't help but wish she's found happiness somewhere far from Mom's reach. On the other hand, Mom, who had been abandoned not only by me but also by Amelia, reportedly shut herself in at home and started living like a recluse, according to Dad. Apparently, she would yell at Dad and throw things at him at every opportunity. Unable to endure such a life, Dad finally left, leaving behind only a completed divorce form. When she showed up at our grandparents' house in a panic, with a desperate look in her eyes. Now I have no one but Charlotte. Please, give me Charlotte back. I was horrified when she said that. And realizing that Mom would never change, no matter what happened, made me feel so sad. Soon after Dad left, Mom started working to support herself, but none of the jobs lasted long, and she kept changing jobs. And every month, she would visit our grandparents' house and shout, "Give Charlotte back!" To protect my grandparents' lives, I made a bold suggestion. That was to move away. With my stable income as a professional pianist, I thought we could live safely and comfortably together. At first, my grandparents were hesitant, but when I expressed my feelings, they happily agreed to the move. So now, my grandparents and I live peacefully in an apartment in the urban area. With the move, we also sold my grandparents' land, so we will never return to that town. I felt like I had finally taken control of my life with this move. And it seemed the same was true for my grandparents. They were very happy with the peaceful days. Though both have grown older and need to visit the hospital more often, they never miss my concerts. And without fail, they would praise me. It was amazing. That's our Charlotte. This moment makes me the happiest of all. I intend to continue cherishing my grandparents, who have always been there for me. And I secretly wish to give back the same amount of love they've given me. You can't possibly handle a divorce. Grace, my sister-in-law, looked down on me with a mocking laugh. Anyway, cool your head. My husband Matthew, face red with anger, was shouting, spittle flying. From today, you'll support my parents and my sister. If you don't want to, we're getting a divorce. I had been waiting for these words. Fine, it's a divorce then. You're okay with that, right? I endured insults and scorn to draw out these words. All the evidence is in place. Saying those words, you've doomed yourself to hell. My name is Zoe. A 29-year-old housewife with no children. I used to work at a clothing manufacturer, but quit 3 years ago after getting married, and now I sew as a hobby. Matthew is 32, sweated it out in the rugby team during college, and got a job at a major housing manufacturer through rugby connections. His body is imposing in every dimension, giving off an intimidating presence. If I so much as talk back or display more knowledge than Matthew, he instantly gets moody and starts lecturing. Now, all I think about is how to live without upsetting Matthew. Additionally, the silent pressure from not having children weighs on me from Matthew and the in-laws. Yesterday, Grace got divorced. Grace got divorced. I could picture Grace's sharp-featured, stern face. Is that so? It was expected. I couldn't imagine Grace's intense personality sustaining a marriage for long. Not much of a reaction from you. Matthew glared at me. It's not that, I was too shocked to speak. I wonder if I managed to hide my lack of surprise. Thinking it was inevitable she'd get divorced would surely lead to trouble later. Yeah, I couldn't believe it either. Almost dropped the cup I was holding. That was a close one. I managed to deflect. Otherwise, I would have been in for a lecture. Matthew's typical lectures began to fill my head.
The toilet was dirty. The rice was hard. You don't work, so you should at least take care of the house more carefully.
His go-to line was always,
Who do you think is feeding you?
Matthew never laid a hand on me. Instead, he chipped away at my spirit with his words. Having children might change things, but there's no sign of that happening yet.
I've decided to do it.
Matthew looked at me irritably. Oops. I must have missed what he said. I'm sorry.
The shock made me zone out.
Not again. Hopefully, it won't lead to a lecture.
So, Grace's husband Paul cheated on her. He even canceled the lease on the apartment Dad and Mom also lived in and moved out alone.
Matthew continued speaking. Seems he's in a good mood. I couldn't believe the always smiling and kind Paul could cheat. It'd be more believable if Grace were the one cheating.
Divorce papers were forced on her. She's really down. Being a housewife, she has no income and is struggling.
How about alimony or child support? If it's a divorce due to cheating, she should be able to divide the property and claim alimony and child support.
There's no way she could get that.
Matthew slammed his fist on the table. I involuntarily tensed up.
Don't act so high and mighty. You couldn't possibly understand all that. Stop talking like you know everything. You're not smart enough to think about such complicated things.
My mouth was dry and I couldn't speak.
All you do is sit at the sewing machine all day.
Such a demeaning way to talk about my passion is too cruel. I could never say this face to face, but sewing is my only hobby and passion. Recently, the dresses I've made have been well received, and some people have even expressed interest in buying them. Poor Harper too, she's only 7, doesn't understand what her dad did. And my parents too, I wonder what they'll do. Matthew seems to be in a good mood, not in lecture mode. Can't we do something for them? Well, I'll go take a bath for now. I need to prepare Matthew's change of clothes. If there's no new clothes ready after his bath, it'll spoil his mood.
I'll go to my sister's place tomorrow.
I couldn't imagine the always gentle Paul cheating. He always seemed to be at Grace's beck and call. Joseph and Olivia were tough on Paul, too. Maybe that's why he cheated. But he always seemed so kind to the children. It's natural to think custody of Harper will go to Grace. Considering Harper is in the lower grades of elementary school, her future struggles come to mind. But if the affair is true, she could get compensation and child support. Why was he so angry about it? I can never tell where his boiling point really is. It's truly exhausting to always talk in fear. The next day, Matthew brought up the same topic as yesterday.
We really should do something to help.
What does he mean by something? A question pops into my head.
Live together, maybe?
Joseph and Olivia lived with them, but it's impossible for 6 people to live in a 2-bedroom apartment.
How about Grace uses our bedroom, and we let Dad and the rest use the room where you have your sewing machine? We'll figure out somewhere for us to sleep.
Matthew says it so lightly, but it's impossible. I had forgotten how much Matthew loves his family. Christmas, summer vacations, everyone's birthdays, we always gather at his parents' house. I've always felt uncomfortable around Matthew's family. But to have no place to sleep and not be able to sew. Matthew slammed his fist on the table. I instinctively tensed up.
This isn't the time to listen to your selfishness. Helping the family is important.
Is wanting a place to sleep and to continue my only joy, sewing, really being selfish? I felt dizzy. I realized talking to him is pointless. The next day, I met with my college friend Madison at a cafe for a change of scenery. It was a long-awaited reunion, but I found myself complaining about my home life. That's definitely emotional abuse.
Yeah, I thought so too, but I didn't have anyone to talk to. And I thought it was okay as long as I followed what Matthew said and didn't get yelled at.
Tears started to spill.
Now's not the time to cry. What you need to do is escape from there.
Madison handed me her business card. It had a law firm's name and the title of legal assistant on it.
After graduating from college, I went back to study and entered law school. Now, I'm working part-time at that law firm.
I was surprised that Madison, who was flashy and playful in college, had become a law student.
Our office has a lot of excellent lawyers who are strong in divorce cases.
Could I also become free if I got away from these people? The thought lifted a weight off my shoulders, and I suddenly felt relieved. As we said goodbye,
"You've endured a lot so far.
You don't have to endure anymore." Madison gently patted my head. A week later, I returned from shopping to find Grace and Harper in the living room, with Matthew sitting across from them. It's a weekday, why is Matthew here? And Grace and her family, too. Looking curiously at Matthew.
Yeah, I left work early.
It's a big deal for us, can't be working at a time like this, he said. Grace looked at me with a smug face, looking down on me.
I'm thirsty. I want peach-flavored juice.
Harper asked for a drink without any hesitation. Despite being young, doesn't she know to show some restraint?
We don't have such sweet drinks since we don't have kids.
Sorry, this auntie isn't very thoughtful. Am I not thoughtful? After all the care and devotion I've shown Matthew. Being called inconsiderate made me question what my marriage has been all about. I resisted the urge to glare at Matthew.
Hurry up and bring some water.
Prompted by Matthew, I hurried to get water.
It's a bit old and small, but it looks like we can manage,
Grace muttered, mocking our home. It may be old, but it's renovated and very comfortable for me. What an attitude.
Mom, where's my room?
Harper unabashedly spoke to her mom, Grace. I was taken aback by Harper's words. A room? What does she mean?
This place is too small, you'll have to bear with it.
What is this all about? I have a bad feeling about this. I don't know where to start, and I can't find the words to respond.
Grace is having a tough time right now. It's difficult to work when Harper is still in elementary school.
Of course, it's tough. Especially with Grace's selfish nature. It's sad she was cheated on and kicked out of her house. But I don't think it's up to us to take on all of that. Paul is the one at fault. What baffles me is why Grace isn't demanding alimony and child support from Paul. With alimony and child support, the Grace family shouldn't have to live like this. So, I've decided we'll support Grace along with Dad and Mom.
Support?
Did Matthew just say we're going to support Grace and her family? What does that mean? Oh, I see, they'll live here for a while until they find a place of their own. I realize it's just Matthew's unique way of expressing his love for his family.
Please, take care of us.
I find myself asking almost pleadingly.
Yes, make yourself at home.
Grace crosses her arms and looks down on me. It's as if I'm the one asking them to stay.
There's some cleaning up to do around the house, so the move will be at the end of the month.
With that, their arrival here is confirmed.
Zoe, make sure you clear out the room by then.
Though it was unbearable to give up my sewing, my hobby, or rather my reason for living, I told myself it was only for a short while. I had planned to send my belongings back to my parents' house for storage, but Matthew's next words left me shocked.
Why don't you just get rid of that sewing machine and those clothes?
That sounds like a good idea. It will make our lives easier. I was speechless. To think my only hobby was regarded so lightly. I felt as if not just my personality, but my entire life was being denied. After calming down, I noticed 4 half-drunk glasses left on the table. It seems Grace and her family didn't bother to clean up before they left. Matthew, meanwhile, was sitting on the sofa, fiddling with his mobile phone.
I'm going out for a bit.
Matthew left the house with an unusually cheerful demeanor. Was he that happy about the idea of living with his entire family? Meanwhile, I felt like I couldn't stand this life anymore. I picked up my mobile phone and made a call. As scheduled, Grace and her family moved in at the end of the month.
Give me a hand, will you? There's so much stuff.
When I went to the entrance, Matthew was there holding a cardboard box, with Grace and Harper wearing a backpack behind him.
Welcome, or should I say, welcome back.
Matthew, as if to say hurry up and help, shoved a box into my hands.
There's more, so please hurry and bring them in.
Grace and Harper walked past me, who was frozen in place with the box, and entered the house.
Zoe, did you manage to clear out the room?
Yes, I sent the sewing machine and the clothes I made to my parents' house the other day. I tried to sound as sarcastic as possible, but I wonder if it got through. I had asked my parents to carefully store them, as I would definitely need them later.
Mom, where's my room?
Harper innocently asked Grace the same question as before. With 6 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment, how could they possibly arrange a separate room for a child? Sorry, but my room will be for Joseph and Olivia, so we can't provide a separate room for Harper.
Grandpa and Grandma's room, huh?
That's annoying. Harper muttered as she passed by me. The thought of living together like this weighed heavily on me. Is this how all kids are these days? Grace, sitting in the living room, said,
I'm tired, Zoe.
Can you get me something to drink? Demanding like a queen.
I want something too. Peach juice would be nice.
I realized I was still frozen in the entrance and headed back to the living room.
Come on, don't just stand there.
We didn't have peach juice. I got grape juice instead, is that okay?
Huh?
Why?
I told you last time. You're useless.
Harper criticized me with language that seemed too mature for an elementary school student. I nearly blurted out.
Is that the only way you can talk?
But I desperately held it back.
Couldn't you have just ordered it online?
Grace, far from apologizing for her daughter's rudeness, added her own criticism. I concluded to myself, like mother, like daughter. I'm sorry, this is all we have. What? Harper voices her displeasure without any reservation. Well, can't be helped. Harper, just bear with it.
Zoe, what are you doing? Hurry up and help.
At that moment, Matthew's loud voice came from the entrance.
Yes, I'm coming now.
Not wanting to upset anyone in Grace's presence, I hurried to the entrance. Finally, we managed to bring all the cardboard boxes inside. As I was unpacking and arranging Grace's belongings, Joseph and his family arrived.
We'll be in your care. So, where's our room?
This man isn't a bad person, but I wonder if lack of restraint runs in their blood.
Since we're at it, how about we order some steaks? Zoe, call the steakhouse for us.
I sigh internally. Surely, he intends to pay for this with the savings I had before we got married. And he dares talk about supporting them? As everyone gathers in the living room to eat the steaks, Matthew solemnly declares,
This is a new start for our family.
Everyone, except me, nods in agreement.
Indeed, let's keep up the good work.
Joseph, with a steak in front of him, seems to be in a good mood, smiling.
So, do you have any idea where you'll live next?
My question wipes the smile off Matthew's face. Great, I've upset him again.
What are you talking about? We're living together here at least until Harper is grown up.
My world goes dark at his words.
That's right, we're going to live here forever.
Grace says it as if it's the most natural thing, but is it really?
Our family is in trouble. Can you just leave them be?
I can't see why we need to take care of them until Harper grows up.
Listen, I'm the head of this household. It's natural for me to decide who we support and who lives with us.
So what am I? Your housekeeper?
Besides, when we have kids, Grace will help with the childcare. This is for your own good.
For my good? That's a classic line of moral harassment. That's what Madison had said when we met last time. I search for an opportunity to retort, waiting for the right words.
Why do we need Grace to raise them? I want to raise my own children.
Why?
Because Zoe, you want to work outside, right? Then work, I'll take care of them. I'll be the big sister, right?
Harper answers with a smug look, raising questions about entrusting childcare to Grace, who raised such an unempathetic and graceless child.
Right, if you work outside, it'll help with the finances, and it's good for you to get out, too.
Matthew claps his hands joyfully.
Yeah, support us with the money you earn.
Grace stares at me with a devilish grin.
I'll be grateful to have extra money besides my pension.
Even Joseph looks forward to living off my earnings. What kind of family is this?
Anyway, it's decided.
I no longer have the energy to argue. Just say those words already. No, I can't take this. I mutter faintly. Matthew slams his fist on the table. My body reflexively wants to move, but I restrain myself.
If you don't like it, then it's divorce. Divorce is the only option.
I had been waiting for those words. Fine, divorce it is. You're okay with that, right? Matthew seems taken aback, not expecting me to agree to a divorce. He swallows his breath.
Don't joke with me. You want a divorce? Were you always this cold-hearted?
Joseph and Olivia look on in shock at Matthew and me.
You can't possibly handle a divorce.
Grace looks down on me, laughing mockingly.
Cool your head.
Matthew, red-faced, yells with spittle flying.
From today, you'll support my parents and sister. If you don't want to, it's a divorce. What? But we're already divorced? What?
Everyone is shocked by my declaration.
That's right, we're already divorced.
I pull out a copy of the divorce papers.
But look, Matthew's signature isn't here. Without it, the divorce isn't valid, right? It's a court divorce. The papers have been filed with the court. You, naive as you are, couldn't possibly have managed that. Who's behind this?
The sound of Matthew slamming his fist on the table echoes through the room, but I'm no longer surprised.
I came up with everything myself. I asked a lawyer to handle the procedures, though. What nonsense are you spouting? You, of all people, you.
Matthew is so flustered he doesn't know what to say.
First off, Grace, you weren't cheated on, you were the one who cheated, right? Paul told me everything.
Joseph glares at Grace.
What's this all about?
Everyone's gaze shifts to Grace.
Paul gave up on reconciling after finding out Harper was the child of Grace's affair. It's not true. My sister's not at fault.
Matthew hastily tries to defend her.
Matthew, why are you defending her? Do you have something to hide?
Matthew shakes his head frantically.
I checked your credit cards. You might have taken the debit and cash cards from me, thinking you're managing everything, but the credit cards and the mobile phone contracts are all under my name since before we got married. So what? We're married, so it's our money. It's none of your business what I use it for. Then what about these frequent visits to hotels in the downtown area?
I placed the usage statement on the table.
That's for work meetings. What about these luxury bags and wallets on the credit card statements? Did you squander money on some girl at a hostess bar? Don't be ridiculous. I'm not the type to be played. I'm in a serious relationship.
I can't help but laugh at Matthew's foolish admission. Pride and stupidity make a dangerous combination. Grace looks at Matthew with a pale face.
You just admitted to cheating.
Joseph and Olivia seem disillusioned, their shoulders slumping.
There's more, including call records. The other party has admitted to the affair. No wonder I couldn't reach them.
Suddenly, Matthew stands up and tries to grab me by the collar.
You better stop. Everything's been recorded and filmed.
Matthew looks around and spots the mobile phone placed unnaturally. His momentum wanes, and he slumps back into his chair.
Your outing after Grace and her family visited the apartment was to see that woman, wasn't it?
Matthew seems to have lost the will to fight back. The story goes back 2 days. I had visited Madison to get a lawyer's advice. The lawyer said Matthew's actions were clear moral harassment, suggesting a codependent relationship. I was advised to separate from Matthew as soon as possible. First, we needed evidence, so I showed the credit card statements and call records. The lawyer,
the man is quite the fool, isn't he?
Laughed. I also played recordings of conversations, as suggested by Madison. There's no way you can't get a divorce with this. And he's been eating through your finances. According to the lawyer, I could claim a significant compensation from Matthew.
Let's kick them out of the apartment as well.
Madison encouraged me.
Let's do it thoroughly.
With a mischievous grin, I nodded firmly to their words. And now, with the help of a lawyer and a friend, I'm confronting Matthew and his family. This isn't the end. Matthew doesn't seem to have the energy to respond anymore.
You won't be able to stay in this apartment either.
Grace reacts the most to this.
Why? Matthew bought this apartment, didn't he?
That's when the lawyer steps in.
Please, go ahead, counselor.
The lawyer, who had been waiting at the entrance, comes into the living room.
Let me explain. This apartment was jointly purchased by Matthew and Zoe. Zoe owns half of it. Moreover, Zoe is refusing to pay any more of the mortgage. Then Matthew should just pay for it.
You can do that much, can't you, Matthew? Grace apparently hasn't given up on living here yet.
It'll be tough but doable.
Indeed, for Matthew, doubling the loan payments would be tough.
What about the distribution of property to Zoe? Zoe's share will be paid in cash. There's no way I have that kind of money.
Grace started crying, shaking Matthew's shoulder.
Figure something out. You're the one who said to leave it to you. That woman is easy, just does whatever I say. And yet, this is the mess we're in.
I handed Grace a document.
There's compensation for Grace. It's all detailed in there.
Grace looked at the document and collapsed right there. I had asked the lawyer to also request compensation for Paul.
As for Grace's compensation, we'll discuss it separately. If Matthew's compensation isn't paid in one lump sum, we're considering garnishing wages from his company. No way!
Matthew could only scratch his head and sob.
Matthew will also be requesting compensation from the other woman.
Suddenly, Matthew lifted his head, looking desperate.
Please, not that. I beg you, please.
Matthew pleaded earnestly, apologizing deeply. It didn't seem sane at all.
If she finds out, I won't be able to live.
He was rubbing his face, covered in snot and tears, against the floor. It was the first time I saw Matthew lose it like this, but I didn't feel a speck of sympathy or pity.
Let's go, lawyer. Since that's the situation, it's better for everyone to find a new place to live soon.
I left the apartment with a smile, glancing at Matthew crouching on the floor. Eventually, the divorce with Matthew was settled through mediation, not court. Joseph, Olivia, and Grace seem to have started living in a cramped, old apartment. Joseph directs traffic at road construction, while Olivia and Grace assemble parts at a nearby factory, managing somehow to make ends meet. Thanks to that, Paul has safely received his compensation. Matthew's affair was with the wife of his boss, who is also a senior in the rugby club. A betrayal in a company with strict hierarchies. The boss refuses to let him resign, seemingly determined to torment him for life. No wonder Matthew apologized. From now on, he'll continue to be a slave to his senior. I moved to a new apartment and am thoroughly enjoying my hobby of sewing. The dresses I sell online are popular, and I've been approached by a major select shop wanting to do business. Recently, a young buyer who really liked my clothes suggested starting a company together to make clothes on a more formal basis. I'm seriously considering getting involved, having been asked with such enthusiasm. I've also been invited to dinner by him, thinking this person with slightly droopy eyes and a kind look might be someone I can feel safe with. Until recently, I couldn't have imagined feeling so refreshingly happy, so I'm surprised at myself for being able to enjoy life this way. My mobile phone is vibrating, a call from him. I need to reply to his dinner invitation today.
Laura here. Annabelle. Melissa. If you're there, please answer.
I banged on the door loudly, but there was no response at all. Just as I was about to leave, thinking they might have gone out, I heard the sound of a key turning. When the door opened, there stood my granddaughter Melissa. She looked anxious, but her face lit up when she saw me.
Granny!
She exclaimed briefly and hugged me tightly. I picked up Melissa and went inside. The room was eerily quiet, and Annabelle was nowhere to be seen.
Melissa, did Annabelle go out somewhere?
Melissa just nodded in response to my question. As we moved further into the house and reached the living room, I noticed half-eaten snacks on the table. I put Melissa down and asked her again.
It's lunchtime, but you were eating snacks? Yeah. When Dad's not here, Santa Claus comes and brings me snacks. Santa Claus? He comes on days when Dad's not here and brings lots of stuff. Mom looks so happy about it. But it's a secret from Dad. Because it would bother Santa Claus.
Hearing this, I became certain of something. Annabelle's flashy outfit the other day was for meeting this Santa Claus. I immediately started to search the house for evidence. I am Laura. I work at a cafe near my home. I lost my husband about 20 years ago, and since then, I have been raising my son Nicholas on my own. Since my husband's passing, the regulars at the cafe have been looking out for me in various ways. With their support, Nicholas grew up well and became independent as a working adult. I shared this joy with all the regulars. A few years after Nicholas started working, he married a woman named Stephanie, and they had my granddaughter, Melissa. Lately, my greatest joy has been seeing Melissa. She seems to have taken a liking to me, which makes me incredibly happy. My hobby is knitting, and I make sweaters and hats, gifting them to her whenever I can. Melissa, I knitted a sweater for you. Seeing the sweater I made, Stephanie also smiled warmly. Thank you as always. Melissa, make sure you thank her properly.
Thank you.
She held the sweater I gave her dearly, humming a tune as she took it to her room. Watching her back, Stephanie and I talked about Melissa's future. Everything was supposed to be fulfilling. But misfortune strikes suddenly. Stephanie fell seriously ill. I took care of Melissa instead, praying fervently every day for Stephanie's recovery. Nicholas, too, was busy caring for Stephanie and comforting Melissa whenever he could. We believed Stephanie would recover. However, after years of fighting the illness, Stephanie passed away. But there was no time to grieve. We still had young Melissa. With Nicholas busy at work, I started to go to his house to take care of her. Seeing Stephanie's resemblance in my granddaughter's face, I vowed to do everything to make Melissa happy. A few years passed by. I was at Nicholas's house, cooking dinner for Melissa as usual. Nicholas returned from work with a serious look on his face.
Mom, I need to talk to you, just the two of us.
He took Melissa to her room and returned alone after a while. I wondered what it was about. A bit anxious, I opened my mouth.
So, what's up?
Nicholas looked embarrassed.
Well, actually, I'm thinking of remarrying.
What? I blurted out loudly. Then covered my mouth, worrying Melissa might hear. Nicholas continued seriously.
Sorry, I know it's shocking. I didn't intend to at first. But thinking of the future, I worry about Melissa being lonely.
Indeed, Nicholas had a point. I'm taking care of her now, but there's no guarantee I can continue to do so. Melissa is still young, she might accept a new mother.
I understand. I'll support your decision. So, what's she like, the woman you're seeing?
Relieved, Nicholas smiled for the first time.
She's a junior at my company. She's been into me since she joined. She's really cheerful, I think Melissa will like her.
That's good to hear.
Actually, I'd like you to meet her before the wedding, if that's okay.
Of course. So the conversation progressed, and a few days later, I was set to meet Nicholas's fiancée. Her name is Annabelle, and just like Nicholas said, she was very cheerful. Throughout our conversation, her constant smile made me genuinely like her. When I first saw him at the company, I knew I liked him. I heard he lost his previous wife, but I didn't care and went for it. I aggressively pursued him. Anyway, she talked a lot. With her youthful appearance, she looked much younger than her age. I was worried about how Melissa would feel about Annabelle, but Melissa seemed to warm up to her quickly. Seeing Melissa so attached to Annabelle, I felt reassured that she would be all right.
Annabelle, please take good care of them. I'm here to help if you need anything.
I bowed as politely as I could, and Annabelle gave a thumbs up. Okay. Leave it to me. Afterward, Nicholas and Annabelle got married and started their new life. I wholeheartedly blessed their future and returned to my regular life. Working at the cafe, joking with the regulars, and knitting while watching TV at home. It was fulfilling, but I felt a bit lonely compared to the busyness of the past. At such times, I prayed in my heart to Stephanie. What would she say if she were alive? I thought about such things as I continued with my knitting. Several more years passed since their remarriage. One day, I went to give Melissa a sweater I had knitted, heading to the condominium where Nicholas and his family lived. Nicholas seemed busy with work lately, often away on business trips. With him not home often, I worried Annabelle might be overburdened with childcare. While delivering the sweater, I hoped to help Annabelle as well. Thinking about what to talk about with her, I headed to Nicholas's condominium.
What floor was it again?
Arriving at the condominium, I muttered to myself, standing in front of the elevator. Luckily, the elevator was just coming down. Third floor, second floor, as the lights blinked, and a sound indicated its arrival at the first floor. In contrast to the slowly opening doors, a woman hurried out. I glanced at her and was surprised to see that the woman was Annabelle.
Oh!
Annabelle! Startled by my voice, Annabelle let out a gasp and hopped a little.
Laura? You startled me! What are you doing here?
Sorry about that. I knitted a sweater for Melissa and thought I'd bring it over. Hearing this, Annabelle suddenly seemed unsettled. Her gaze wandered around, restlessly. I noticed that Annabelle was dressed very elegantly. Her outfit and makeup were perfect.
Are you heading out? Bad timing on my part.
Yes, I have a meeting with mom friends. So, avoiding eye contact and fidgeting with the hand not holding her bag, Annabelle spoke. Annabelle seemed in a hurry. Regretting not contacting her in advance, I suggested. Don't worry about me, go ahead. Melissa is in her room, right? If I stay with her, you can relax and enjoy your time more. And so, I offered.
Just wait a moment. I can't impose that on you, Laura.
Don't worry about it. You probably need a break too. I'm just an old lady with too much time on her hands. However, she stubbornly refused my offer, and I felt something was off. Sure, I might have been overstepping. But was there a need for her to be so frantic? The truth is, my apartment's a mess. I'm embarrassed for you to see it. That's why I don't want you to come in. It's fine, really. I can help clean up. Finally, unable to hold back any longer, Annabelle snatched the bag with the sweater from my hand. I really can't have you here. I'll make sure Melissa gets the sweater. Please go home now. I'll contact you later. Then she pressed the elevator button. Even as Annabelle stepped in and the doors began to close, she kept a wary eye on me, making sure I wasn't following. As the doors closed slowly, I waved goodbye. Only silence remained. But my mind was anything but quiet. The season was about to turn to autumn, yet her attire was quite revealing. I also noticed a strong scent of perfume. I've met with mom friends myself, but never dressed so provocatively. Maybe times have changed, but Annabelle's attire seemed too intent on attracting the opposite sex. Moreover, the once bright smiling Annabelle didn't smile at all. Instead, she had a glaring look that concerned me. I wanted to chase after her, go to the apartment, and clear my doubts. But Melissa was there too. Not wanting to cause a commotion, I decided not to. I watched the elevator light ascend with a feeling of unease. With worries in my heart, I left the condominium quickly. That night, while knitting and watching TV, I suddenly got a call from Annabelle. I stopped my work and answered the phone. Hello.
Hello. Granny.
Melissa's innocent voice came through. Her voice instantly made me smile. Melissa. It's been a while. Have you been well?
Yeah. And thanks for the sweater. I'll treasure it.
Her words brought relief. Annabelle had indeed given it to her. That's all right, dear. If you ever need another, I'm always here to knit one for you.
Really? That's so nice. Granny, you're like Santa Claus too.
The phrase "Granny, you're like Santa Claus too" oddly struck me. As if there was someone else giving gifts besides me. Yes, indeed. You're such a good girl, Santa Claus must visit you a lot. I subtly tried to confirm the meaning of her words.
Melissa. Don't say unnecessary things.
I faintly heard Annabelle's angry voice from the background. Unaware that I could hear her, Annabelle continued scolding in a stern tone.
You've already said thank you, right? Hang up now. Yes, okay. Sorry, Granny. I have to go now.
Melissa's voice was trembling. More than being upset about being scolded, she seemed frightened by Annabelle's voice. Understood. Call me again later. With that, I ended the call and picked up my crochet hook again. The interaction between the two felt oddly strained for a mother and child. Due to a vague unease, I found it hard to continue knitting. Annabelle's flashy attire from the afternoon and Melissa's fearful voice from earlier. Could something troubling be happening? I knew I had to do something, but wasn't sure what. I sat motionless for a while, pondering my next move. That's it. Nicholas. I should talk to Nicholas. With his image in mind, I immediately grabbed my mobile phone and called Nicholas. He was on a business trip out of state, but it should be after work hours. Please, pick up. Luckily, Nicholas answered the phone right away. Hello. What's up, Mom? It's unusual for you to call at this time. I could hear a hint of tiredness in his voice. But I had no time to worry about that.
Hello, Nicholas. Are you okay? I need to talk to you about something. I'm fine, but what's wrong? Did something happen?
Sensing urgency in my voice, Nicholas's tone became serious. I told him about visiting the condominium with the sweater, encountering Annabelle in the elevator hall, and then about Melissa earlier. Nicholas listened quietly as I spoke. After I finished, he replied,
I understand the situation. Indeed, it does sound concerning.
He let out a deep sigh.
That's what I thought. I can't stop thinking about it.
While I was frantic, Nicholas seemed surprisingly calm.
What should we do? What if something happens to Melissa? Just wait a moment, Mom. Panicking won't help. I think Annabelle is just stressed because I've been busy. We shouldn't make a fuss about it.
Calmed by Nicholas's advice, I regained some composure.
You're right. I'm sorry for jumping the gun. That's okay. But we can't just leave it at that. I'll talk to my company and try to cut my business trip short. We can go to the house together when I'm back.
Indeed, it's better to act together rather than rushing in alone. I agreed with Nicholas's suggestion.
Understood. Let me know when you've decided on a plan. Yeah. But keep this a secret from Annabelle, okay? Talk to you later.
After hanging up, I let out a deep sigh. Nothing was resolved yet, and the unease hadn't disappeared. But hearing Nicholas's calm voice had indeed eased my mind a bit.
Nicholas has really grown up. I need to stay strong too.
Reminding myself of this, I waited for Nicholas's call with a shifted mindset. Soon after, Nicholas contacted me saying he could return earlier than planned. We arranged to visit the condominium together and hoped for the day to come quickly. All I could do was pray for Melissa's safety.
Stephanie, please protect that child. I beg of you.
I continued to plead in my heart. Finally, the day arrived. Leaving my house earlier than planned, Nicholas was not yet there. After informing him I'd enter first, I took the elevator to the apartment. Reaching the door, my heart raced. I mentally rehearsed what to say to Annabelle and braced myself before ringing the doorbell. I rang once, twice, but there was no response from inside. Unable to wait, I knocked on the door.
Laura here. Annabelle. Melissa. If you're there, please answer.
I banged on the door loudly, but there was no response at all. Just as I was about to leave, thinking they might have gone out, I heard the sound of a key turning. When the door opened, there stood Melissa. She looked anxious, but her face lit up when she saw me.
Granny!
She exclaimed briefly and hugged me tightly. I picked up Melissa and went inside. The room was eerily quiet, and Annabelle was nowhere to be seen.
Melissa, did Annabelle go out somewhere?
Melissa just nodded in response to my question. As we moved further into the house and reached the living room, I noticed half-eaten snacks on the table. I put Melissa down and asked her again.
It's lunchtime, but you were eating snacks? Yeah. When Dad's not here, Santa Claus comes and brings me snacks.
I decided to ask Melissa about the doubt that had been on my mind since the other day.
Melissa, who is this Santa Claus?
While eating the snacks, Melissa shook her head.
I don't know. He comes on days when Dad's not here and brings lots of stuff. Mom looks so happy about it. What does Mom say about him? Does she mention Santa Claus's name?
Melissa tilted her head in confusion.
I don't know. She always leaves with Santa Claus quickly. Only Mom comes back. So, Santa Claus visits often because you're a good girl. But Dad doesn't know, right?
Yeah. Dad's never met Santa Claus.
Mom says not to tell Dad because it would upset Santa Claus.
Hearing this, I was convinced that Annabelle was entertaining an unknown man while Nicholas was away. Presumably, that's what she planned when I tried to deliver the sweater. That would explain Annabelle's behavior at that time. And Melissa, receiving sweets and toys, really is believing in Santa Claus. A cheap way to keep her quiet. That's when I noticed Melissa's clothes were dirty.
Melissa, stay here for a moment.
I had a bad feeling. Looking around the house, my fears were confirmed. Dirty clothes scattered everywhere, unwashed dishes piled up in the kitchen. Carefully avoiding the mess, I opened the fridge. It was nearly empty, with only expired food inside. Shocked by the state of things, I returned to the living room. Melissa was gobbling up the sweets.
Melissa, are you hungry? Haven't you eaten? I'm hungry because I haven't ate. That's why I like eating the sweets Santa Claus gives me.
I hugged Melissa tightly, gently stroking her head. It's too much for such a young child to endure. How could I face Stephanie in heaven now? As I loosened my embrace, Nicholas arrived. Entering the room and setting down his bag, he sighed as he looked around.
This is a mess.
Dad! Welcome back! Melissa quickly left my side and hugged Nicholas.
Melissa, have you been a good girl?
Nicholas embraced her, gently stroking her head as I had.
Nicholas, can you watch Melissa? She hasn't eaten anything. I'm going to the supermarket to buy some groceries. Understood. I appreciate it.
I hurriedly left and bought essential groceries. Back home, I cleaned the kitchen and cooked a meal. Melissa ate hungrily. Meanwhile, Nicholas and I cleaned the room and secured evidence of Annabelle's infidelity. We discussed how to confront Annabelle with the truth. During our talk, Nicholas sensed Annabelle's return and retreated to the back room.
I'm home. You better have not done anything.
Annabelle entered, noticing me, and dropped her bag.
Laura! What are you doing here?
She looked around the room and went to the kitchen. And then approached me angrily.
Unbelievable. You just come in and use the kitchen? That's outrageous even for you.
Annabelle's anger didn't seem to subside. And then she directed her anger at Melissa.
Melissa! You opened the door for her. Why do you always do such unnecessary things?
Melissa dropped her chopsticks to the floor and clung to Annabelle's legs, crying loudly.
Mom, I'm sorry. I won't do anything bad again. Please forgive me. Annabelle, there's no need to speak like that. Melissa was waiting here hungry the whole time.
Annabelle, her face twisted in anger, let out a heavy sigh.
I don't need to be lectured. Melissa is my child. Laura, please don't interfere.
I clenched my fists involuntarily. Yes, her words weren't wrong. But I couldn't overlook this situation for Melissa's sake.
But this is like neglecting a child. I understand it's tough with Nicholas being busy. If that's the case, you should have asked me for help. Enough! Just leave now. I'll ask Nicholas to have a word with you. There's no need for that.
Nicholas, unable to bear Annabelle's harsh words any longer, emerged from his hiding spot. Annabelle was surprised to see him.
Nicholas, you're back already.
That was quick. Was work all right? Annabelle desperately tried to cover up her actions. But it was too late for such efforts. Still, Annabelle seemed oblivious, continuing to speak sweetly to Nicholas.
If you had told me you were coming back early, I would have cleaned up and prepared a feast.
But those words no longer had any effect on me or Nicholas. Nicholas signaled me with his eyes. Understanding immediately, I took Melissa's hand.
Melissa, you're full now, right? Let's watch TV together.
I took Melissa to another room and turned on the TV. Although she was sobbing, she soon became engrossed in the TV.
Melissa, watch TV for a bit. I'm going to clean up. Okay.
Leaving my smiling granddaughter watching TV, I returned to the living room. Nicholas and Annabelle were seated facing each other at the dining table. Annabelle had changed completely from her earlier coyness, now sitting quietly, looking down. Nicholas sat with his arms crossed, staring intently at Annabelle. I sat down next to Nicholas. Taking that as a cue, Nicholas began to speak.
So, can you explain what all this is about?
Annabelle bit her lip, not answering.
Listen, Annabelle. I'm not trying to blame you. I share the responsibility, too. I was too busy with work to help with childcare.
Then Annabelle suddenly looked up and glared at Nicholas.
That's right. It's all your fault for dumping everything on me. You're never home, and Melissa is a handful. It was hard. So, you cheated on him.
I calmly responded to Annabelle's defiant attitude. In her panic, Annabelle started blurting out things we hadn't even asked.
I did love Nicholas, you know. Since I joined the company. I thought Stephanie's death was my chance, so I married him, but now I regret it.
She continued, taking advantage of our silence.
But look at Nicholas. He's gotten old. Look at that belly. It's embarrassing. I'm disillusioned. I'm still young and I want to have fun. Is that too much to ask?
I involuntarily glanced at Nicholas. But he didn't seem particularly angry.
I get what you're saying. So, who is your affair partner?
A friend from my student days, Hugo. We happened to meet recently. He's still wonderful, unlike you. After saying this, Annabelle looked up at the ceiling.
I shouldn't have married. Melissa is becoming more like Stephanie and is not cute at all. But Hugo likes kids, so she was useful in that matter.
Suddenly, Nicholas slammed his fist on the table. Both Annabelle and I were startled and tensed up. Nicholas glared at Annabelle with anger-filled eyes.
You think because I don't say anything, you can keep this up? I was going to forgive you, but you keep spouting nonsense.
Annabelle seemed completely frightened by this side of Nicholas. I swallowed hard, impressed by his intensity.
Mock me all you want, but I won't tolerate you talking about Melissa like that. It's over. We're getting a divorce. I'll be seeking alimony, too. Wait.
Annabelle's complexion changed the moment she heard divorce. She realized she had said too much.
I won't divorce. I'll apologize for overstepping. I regret what I did to Melissa, and I'll break up with Hugo. Please forgive me. No, we're separating. Even if I forgave you now, you'd just do it again. My mind is made up.
I had never seen Nicholas with such a cold expression. Annabelle's anger flared up again at his unchanging decision.
Stop it. You just admitted it's your fault. I won't allow a divorce.
Hearing this, Nicholas slowly took out his mobile phone and placed it on the table. He operated the screen, and Annabelle's voice started playing. As soon as she heard it, she became silent and seemed to come to her senses. Her earlier statements echoed through the room.
As you can hear, I recorded your voice. I have evidence of the state of the room and your affair. So, there's no chance of winning for you.
Thus, Annabelle finally compromised and accepted the divorce. For the time being, I took custody of Melissa. It was decided because Nicholas was busy, and it was deemed unsafe to leave her with Annabelle. During the divorce mediation, I started taking Melissa to the cafe with permission. The regular customers were smitten with her and even helped look after her. When I explained the situation to them, one of them, a former detective, suggested filing a criminal complaint. With enough evidence, it would be possible, he advised. I immediately informed Nicholas, and we began preparations for a criminal case. Simultaneously, the divorce mediation also progressed smoothly. Thanks to the evidence we had secured in advance, Nicholas successfully gained custody. I am truly glad I consulted with Nicholas at that time. Regarding alimony, since Nicholas also had some fault, the amount wasn't significant. However, Annabelle couldn't afford it, so her parents agreed to pay on her behalf. Subsequently, Annabelle was arrested. Following the trial, she is now incarcerated. Melissa was anxious until the turmoil settled, but she quickly cheered up thanks to the regular customers and our emotional support. On my recommendation, Nicholas moved to a nearby neighborhood. He's still busy with work, so when he's on business trips, Melissa stays at my house. Our greatest joy is doing knitting together and watching TV. Melissa increasingly resembles Stephanie. Seeing Stephanie's reflection in Melissa's smile, we are all living a happy life. Children are a nuisance, so go to a facility. Who said I have a mom? My name is Madison. I'm in the 5th grade, living with my dad and mom. Dad is really kind, and he takes me out on his days off. Mom acts normal when Dad is around, but when he's not, she seems cold and distant, making it a bit hard to talk to her. See you. Dad, as usual, leaves for work early in the morning. As I eat breakfast. I'll see you later, I said. Checking the clock, it's almost time for me to go to school. I need to hurry up and get dressed after eating quickly. Thanks for the meal. After finishing, I place my dishes in the sink and head to my room to change. Wait. Mom stops me, pointing to the sink. Who's going to wash these? Her eyes are cold, almost angry. Normally, I'd just change and go to school, but it felt like I'd be scolded if I did. I'll wash them, I murmured. What? I can't hear you, you're too quiet. Mom suddenly yells. My body trembles. But feeling guilty, I apologize. I'm sorry. I'll wash them. Of course. From now on, take care of your own things. Mom angrily tosses her apron on the sofa and goes to her room. Reflecting on her words, I wash the breakfast dishes and leave for school. At school, while talking with friends, the conversation turns to parents. Hearing their stories, everyone else's moms seem kind, and though they get scolded, they seem close. What's your mom like? Suddenly asked by a friend, I'm at a loss for words. But I think maybe it's my misunderstanding that mom is cold, and her bad mood is because I haven't been doing things for myself. She's very kind, I respond. Hearing this, my friend says, That's nice. But I feel conflicted inside. I'm home. When I return home, Mom isn't there. Maybe she went shopping, I think, and start my homework in my room. Before I know it, it's dark outside, and it's dinner time, but she hasn't come back yet. Then, I hear noises from the entrance and the fridge opening. Stepping out of my room, I see her in the kitchen. I am so hungry, so I go to the kitchen. Welcome back, I said to her, and she responds, I'm back. Her brief reply without looking back indicates she's still in a bad mood. What's for dinner tonight? I asked cheerfully. But maybe that was a mistake. When Mom turns around, her face looks scary. Huh? I told you to do things for yourself, didn't I? Dad will be back soon, and I'm busy cooking. Unable to say anything more to her, I start to make instant noodles when Dad comes home. Hello. Hearing Dad's voice, Mom quickly takes the instant noodles from my hands. Confused about what to do, Dad enters the kitchen. Oh. Are we starting dinner now? Seeing Dad's kind face, I almost cry. Welcome back. Just got back from shopping. Dinner will be ready soon. Just wait a bit more. Mom's face softens. I can't tell if she's still angry, but the thought of eating Mom's cooking makes me happy. Later, we have dinner as a family, and I have a fun time playing games with Dad. Maybe Mom was just in a slightly bad mood. Thinking that there won't be any more scolding if I take care of myself properly, I fall asleep. From the next day, I try my best to do things by myself. I wash the breakfast dishes, fold the laundry, put it away, vacuum my room. And when Mom comes home late, I make instant noodles for myself. Thinking that this will surely make her happy, my face breaks into a smile. Mom hasn't praised me yet, but she's getting less angry. When Dad is around, the three of us have a good time together. I was happy about that. One time, I heard a groaning noise and woke up in the middle of the night. Thinking it might be a ghost, I dove under the covers. The groaning continued for a while, and as I trembled with fear, suddenly I heard an ambulance. It stopped nearby, and I realized it was right outside our house. Wondering who it was, I got out of bed and saw Dad being carried out.
Dad!
I shouted, rushing over. Dad looked pale and was sweating, obviously in a lot of pain. Tears came to my eyes, and clinging to the paramedic.
Please save Dad!
I begged. The paramedic put a hand on my head.
We're taking him to the hospital now,
he said. Then Mom and I followed the ambulance to the hospital, where Dad was taken away. We could only wait in the designated area. I was filled with anxiety, wondering what would happen if we lost Dad. But Mom, next to me, was handling her phone, not seeming worried at all. I cried alone, waiting for someone to tell me it was going to be okay. After what felt like an eternity, a doctor came over to us. Mom and the doctor spoke about something complicated, and all I understood was that Dad was ill and needed to be hospitalized. I was shocked that Dad had to fight a disease, and he couldn't come home for a while. Mom and I went home for now. After preparing for Dad's hospital stay, Mom left for the hospital again. Left alone at home, I lay in bed unable to sleep, and soon it was bright outside since it was early morning.
School.
I had to go to school. But I didn't feel like it. I didn't feel like eating and just stayed under the covers.
Aren't you going to school?
Mom noticed me at noon. She didn't scold me for missing school but seemed busy and left for the hospital right away. Having eaten nothing since morning, I went to the kitchen. I ate the leftovers from last night's dinner as my meal. In the evening, Mom came back. She brought sandwiches. Eat this today.
I also bought some instant noodles for you to eat from tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you. I decided to follow her instructions, not wanting to bother her as she was busy with Dad. The next day, after having instant noodles for breakfast, I went to school. My friends asked why I was absent yesterday, and I lied, saying I felt sick. The teacher, seeming to know the situation, spoke kindly to me. When I got home, Mom wasn't there, probably at the hospital with Dad. I wanted to see Dad too. I thought I'd ask Mom to take me on the next day off. While doing my homework, the phone rang. I was the only one home, so I answered. Hello?
Oh, Madison?
What are you doing? It was Dad on the phone, and hearing his voice made me cry.
Dad! Are you okay now? I want to see you.
Hearing me cry, he spoke gently.
Sorry to worry you. I'm okay now. I want to see you too. I'd be happy if you could come with Mom. Yeah. I'll ask her. Okay. Oh, is she there?
I wondered where she was. She wasn't at home. I thought she was at Dad's hospital.
Mom isn't here. Isn't she at the hospital?
Hearing this, Dad seemed to realize something and spoke evasively.
Right. She just left a while ago. She'll be back soon. Madison, have you had something to eat?
Yeah. Mom bought some instant noodles and stuff. After I said that, he was silent for a moment, then.
Is that so?
He said, before changing the subject. After talking with him for a while, I heard the front door open, so I told him she was back. Dad asked me to hand the phone to her. And when she, who had just returned, took over the phone, she looked a bit shaken as she talked to Dad. I went back to my room, noticing the smell of cigarettes on her and wondering where she had been. The next day, Mom asked if I wanted to go to the hospital with her. I said yes, even though she seemed a bit reluctant, but she took me. Seeing Dad after a long time. He was connected to Infor but smiled when he saw me.
Madison! You came!
I hugged him. Seeing him looking well made me want to cry again, but I was so happy to see him. After talking with him for a while, Mom said it was time to go, and we left the room reluctantly. As I looked back, he was waving at me with a smile.
Come visit again,
he said. But I never thought that would be our last conversation. His condition suddenly worsened, and he passed away in no time. I couldn't believe he was gone, as Mom instructed me to wear mourning attire and took me to the funeral home. Many people came to say goodbye to him. Seeing Mom's detached demeanor made me wonder if Dad was really gone. Standing at the edge of the room, someone approached me. "Hey, aren't you Madison?" I turned around to see a woman standing behind me. I was confused, not recognizing her, and she sat down next to me. "It's been so long. I'm your aunt, Madison, your dad's sister." Looking at her, I saw she resembled Dad. I had no memory of an aunt, but I remembered Dad talking about his sister. "Aunt." "Yes, your aunt. Don't I look like your dad?" She laughed, looking just like Dad. Then she suddenly hugged me.
It's okay to cry. You've been strong, Madison.
I must have been crying already because her words made me cry even more. It felt like the moment I realized I would never see Dad again. After a while, as my aunt soothed me, I thanked her and went to get a drink. When I entered the room, Mom was there. Seeing my tear-streaked face, she said coldly,
"What? You cried? What an embarrassing face."
Her words hurt.
"Mom, aren't you sad?"
I couldn't help asking her, seeing she wasn't grieving.
"There's no point in being sad. He's gone."
I trembled at Mom's cold words. I wondered if she hated Dad, despite all the happy times we had as a family. As I stood frozen, my aunt came over.
"Oh, long time no see,"
she said with a smile, and Mom's expression changed.
"Oh, it's been a while.
Anything I can help with?" "No."
"There's nothing."
"Then, Madison, let's go over there." My aunt took my hand and led me out of the room. It was clear that Mom was uncomfortable around her. Afterward, I stayed with my aunt until Dad's funeral ended.
"Madison, it's time to go."
A while after the funeral, Mom came to pick me up. My aunt had been holding my hand the whole time, but she let go to say goodbye. Her face looked a bit sad.
"Madison, see you again." "Yeah, see you."
Reluctantly leaving with Mom, an unfamiliar car pulled up.
"Sorry to keep you waiting."
A man, apparently Mom's acquaintance, was driving, and she opened the car door. I instinctively resisted getting into the car with a stranger.
"Stop dawdling and get in."
Mom's tone was unlike anything I'd heard from her before, and I reluctantly got in the car. The car drove in the opposite direction from our home, and I just watched the passing scenery outside. Feeling a bit scared in a car, not knowing where we were heading.
"We're here. Get out now."
As I was told to get off, there was a large building and I had no idea where I was.
"Mom, where are we?"
I asked, and Mom, lighting a cigarette, replied,
"Kids are a nuisance, so off to the facility you go."
"What?" Not understanding what I was told, a strange man and Mom drove away. I tried to chase the car for a while, but obviously couldn't catch up and gave up when I tripped. Lost and not knowing where to go, I was heading back to where I was left. Then, a car stopped beside me. The window rolled down and it was my aunt in the driver's seat.
"Never thought it'd come to this." "Madison, get in."
Relieved to see my aunt, I quickly got into the car. She stroked my head and I cried quietly as my tension melted away.
"How many times are you going to cry today, poor thing?"
Riding in my aunt's car, we arrived at a house. It seemed to be her home. As I was told to come in.
"Welcome home."
A man's voice greeted us. I instinctively hid behind my aunt.
"It's okay."
Who laughed and said. I nervously looked at the man, a young guy standing and smiling at me.
"Sorry, got you scared, huh? I'm this lady's husband. I guess I'm your uncle, in a way."
He extended his hand for a handshake. Comforted by his kind face, I shook his hand, and he smiled again.
"You must be hungry, right? We've got dinner ready, you need to eat a lot to grow." "Annoying, just like Mom."
Hearing their cheerful conversation, I couldn't help but smile too. Then my stomach growled, making me feel embarrassed, and they both burst into laughter. And so, I had a fun dinner time for the first time in a while. After dinner, they let me take a bath and even prepared pajamas for me. Then, "Come here." As I was invited to the living room, they had prepared hot milk for me. Hot milk? Aren't you too old for that, Madison? Hey! Don't kids love hot milk? No? In such a cozy atmosphere, I found myself laughing along. And they laughed with me. Then, "Sit down, we have something to talk about." As I sat down in front of the hot milk, they began to speak.
Hey Madison, how about becoming our child?
I was about to drink my milk and choked on these words.
What?
Sorry. It was abrupt, wasn't it? My uncle patted my back. My aunt laughed.
Become our kid? You don't want to go back to that kind of mom, do you?
I was deep in thought. I didn't hate Mom. But thinking about what happened at home, Dad, and being abandoned, I was honestly scared to go back to her.
Actually, we've been in touch with your dad.
What? I was surprised to hear Dad's name. My aunt explained in detail. The person with Mom was her affair partner, and Dad had realized Mom was cheating. He was very worried about me. Dad's illness had gotten serious, and he might not have long left. He asked them to take care of me after he's gone. Hearing this, I couldn't stop my tears and desperately wanted to see him.
Your dad cared a lot about you and loved you.
My aunt's warm hand stroking my head made me internally shout thank you to Dad multiple times. Dear Dad. Fun-loving Dad. I decided to become strong for Dad. I want to stay with you too. Hearing this, both my aunt and uncle were happy. Staying with them would require some paperwork and might take a while, but they said it was fine to stay together until then. I decided to help out my aunt and uncle as much as I could. Helping with breakfast and dinner, cleaning the bathroom and toilet, until they started worrying that I was doing too much. Told to play like a grade schooler, I couldn't think of anything to do, so I decided to start on my homework.
Madison, were you always doing chores at home?
I was asked by my aunt during dinner. When I nodded, my uncle sitting next to me hugged me.
You've had it tough for a grade schooler. It's normal to help out. But I'm worried you've been pushing yourself too hard.
Indeed, maybe I was trying too hard to get praise from Mom. Realizing something I hadn't been aware of before, I fell silent. All that effort, never praised. I guess she never really cared.
You don't have to worry about anything here. You can help out, but what you should focus on are friends, school, and yourself. Take care of yourself.
My aunt's words resonated with me. My uncle, looking like he might cry, nodded repeatedly. I felt so happy to be with them. 2 weeks after Dad's funeral, I was called to the staff room at school. Wondering what it was about, I was told that Mom had called. The teachers probably didn't know the full story. Thinking it would trouble them if I didn't answer, I picked up the phone with trembling hands. Hello.
Madison. Answer the phone quickly.
Her voice, which I hadn't heard in a long time, was a shout, just like before.
Where are you? You're not at the facility I left you at.
I couldn't find my voice and remained silent.
Are you listening? Well, never mind. I'm coming to pick you up. Then I'll get some allowance money. I need money right now.
Hearing this, I felt my feelings for her cool. To think I wanted love, praise, and even betrayed Dad for someone like this. I was filled with regret. Now I have my aunt and uncle. I have a place where I belong. Dad is watching over me. I can be strong.
I don't have a mom, do I?
Before I knew it, I had said that to her.
What? What are you talking about? You must be mistaken. Goodbye. Wait.
I hung up the phone on my own. The teacher beside me looked shocked and asked,
"Wasn't that your mom?"
To which,
"It was a stranger,"
I replied. The call was treated as a suspicious call, and the school issued a warning. Worried that Mom might come to pick me up, I called my aunt from the school's payphone. My aunt said she would come right away and soon arrived. She explained the situation to the teachers, who contacted the child welfare office. After I went home, Mom apparently did come to pick me up, but the teachers handled it, and she left reluctantly with a dissatisfied look. Mom never stormed into the school again, but just to be safe, my aunt or uncle started picking me up before school ended. I felt sorry, but my aunt and uncle said, "Don't worry about it." With a smile. Thanks to them, I am living happy days. The teachers at school are also looking out for me, and I'm glad to have so many allies around me. Then, one day, a little while later, the phone rang at home. Lately, I've been answering calls to my aunt and uncle's house. So, as usual, I answered the phone. "Hello." The voice I heard was one I didn't want to hear.
"Oh, Madison? So you were there after all."
I froze, recognizing it was Mom. How did she know I was here? Nobody should have told her.
"Come back quickly. Things are tough here."
She spoke unilaterally to my silence. According to her, her affair partner's company had gone bankrupt and they were out of money. If she was with me, she could get government assistance and couldn't live without it. She said she was in a de facto marriage with her affair partner and was considering breaking up if they couldn't survive financially. I couldn't quite grasp the story, only understanding that she needed me for money. That's what she had said when she called the school too, so she must be really out of money. As I remained silent, she got increasingly irritated. As I was being yelled at, the phone was taken from me. Turning around in surprise, there stood my aunt, smiling at me. But in the next moment, her face turned into a frightening one.
"Answer when spoken to. Are you listening?"
"Enough.
I can hear you even without the yelling." "What?"
Mom's voice, audible over the phone, suddenly stopped. I was tense.
"Aren't you ashamed to be a mother? Telling your daughter to come back just for money? That's ridiculous. What do you think Madison is?" "You are none of your business. Madison is my daughter. Give her back." "Who was it that left your daughter in front of a facility?" "Don't talk so high and mighty. I'll tell the police. Say that she was kidnapped." "Go ahead, say it. We have evidence of the terrible things you've done to Madison. Actually, please tell the police. It might solve things quicker." "What did you say?"
Listening to the argument between my aunt and Mom, I felt a bit down, like I was causing trouble. Then, my uncle, who had returned at some point, patted my head from behind.
"It's okay. Leave it to us. It's time for the adults to step in."
Saying that, he took my hand and made hot milk again.
"Madison likes hot milk, right? You drink quite a lot of it."
"Yeah.
I thought it was delicious the first time I tried it. That's why I like it."
Hearing this, my uncle smiled happily. After a while, my aunt came back to the living room. Seeing my worried look, she awkwardly patted my head.
"What's with that face?"
"Don't worry. She's no match for me." While fixing my hair.
"Thank you,"
I said to her. Then I helped with dinner preparation. I never knew helping out could be so enjoyable until I came to my aunt and uncle's house. A few days later, when the phone rang, it was Mom again. Even though my aunt and uncle told me not to answer the phone anymore, I wanted to help them in some way.
"Madison? Mom is really in trouble. I need your help. Like I said before, I don't have a mom." "Well, what an ungrateful child. Weren't you raised by Mom? Have you forgotten the happy days spent with Dad and me?"
The mention of Dad surprised and irritated me.
"I had fun when Dad was with me. But the kind one was only Dad. Mom abandoned me."
I was surprised at how loud my voice was when I spoke up. Then I felt my mood clearing. From then on, I talked back to everything she said.
"Are you even my child? I didn't abandon you. I just left you there. You said, kids are a nuisance, so go to the facility. You said it while laughing. Such a person is not a mom. I was forced to say that. It's not my fault. Still, I was abandoned. So I don't have a mom. If I have a mom, it's Abigail. Dad is Timothy and my deceased dad. Are you brainwashed? Stop talking nonsense and come back quickly.
Before I knew it, I was arguing with Mom while crying. But strangely, I felt lighter, as if I had been holding back a lot until now.
At least, let me live in the house you're staying in. I can't even eat if things stay like this.
No.
Don't bother the people I love.
Suddenly feeling someone's presence, I turned around to see my aunt and uncle standing there. My aunt patted my head. "Well said." My uncle nodded, almost crying. Then my aunt took over the phone, talking to Mom. She seemed strangely happy. According to my uncle, he was happy to hear my words.
I'm glad to be called Dad.
He also said to me. It was something I said on my own, but if they're happy, maybe it's okay to think that way? I felt happy too. After that, there were no more calls from Mom for a while. Probably thanks to my aunt and uncle. Since I started living with them, they bought me a mobile phone. I was so excited to have my first mobile phone, and I exchanged contact information with friends who had phones, enjoying more than ever before. On a day of continued peace, the house phone, unusually, rang. Since the incident with Mom, the school had started contacting my aunt or uncle's mobile phones, and I had been given a mobile phone, so calls from friends came to my mobile. Wondering who it could be, I answered hesitantly. "Hello." Contrary to my high spirits, the person on the other end sounded very down. "Hello, it's me." At first, I didn't recognize who it was and thought it might be a wrong number. I had been told at school not to talk to strangers, so I was about to hang up. "It's Mom." "You've forgotten my voice?" "Ah." Upon hearing this, I listened carefully. And indeed, it was Mom's voice, but so lacking in energy that I had not recognized it. "You're already in 6th grade, aren't you?" There's no one else here right now." Saying that made Mom start to cry. I was stuck, not knowing what to do. "Actually, I'm in the hospital. I've fallen ill." "What?" Hearing about her being sick and in the hospital made me think of Dad. Now, recalling him doesn't make me sad. Rather, I feel energized by the good memories he left me. "No one is here to take care of me. Could you come and take care of Mom? And the hospital bills are piling up. I can't pay them. Can you ask Abigail for me?"
Say something, will you?
"Why should I, a stranger, take care of you?"
What? I refuse to pay for the hospital bills. And I won't tell Abigail. Don't get cheeky with me. Don't get too big for your britches.
She sounded too energetic for a sick person. Hearing about Mom being ill didn't shake me like it did when Dad was sick. My feelings for her had truly cooled off inside me. No matter what she said, I no longer felt fear. I didn't want to complain or say anything. Just felt sorry for her. I vowed never to become like her, even when I grow up. I was surprised at how coldly I could respond.
I've been given a mobile phone. And we hardly use the house phone anymore, so it's likely going to be disconnected. So this is really goodbye.
Hearing this, Mom panicked.
Don't say that.
Please?
Oh, then give me your mobile number.
That's impossible.
There's really no one to take care of me. No one to help with money. Then I'll contact someone who seems like they could help.
Mom seemed a bit mistaken by my words, sounding slightly hopeful. Hearing her hopeful voice made me sigh. I asked for the name of the hospital and hung up. Then immediately contacted my aunt. I told her about the conversation, and she worried about me but praised me for handling it well. When I made a request, she agreed and quickly contacted someone. Just as I told Mom, someone who might take care of her. A few days later, I noticed the house phone ringing persistently. It was probably Mom, I thought, and I didn't answer. It continued until night, even when my aunt and uncle came home. When I mentioned the constant ringing, my aunt sighed and answered the phone. Sure enough, it was Mom, and my aunt ended up in a battle with her. Mom kept demanding to talk to me, and my aunt refused. Mom's voice, overheard through the phone.
I didn't hear that my brother was coming. Why did you call him?
She sounded panicked that her own brother had shown up. The person I asked to contact my aunt was Mom's brother. I had remembered hearing before that Mom greatly disliked her brother. He was described as very stubborn, a person of deep loyalty and sentiment. Therefore, her affair was something that couldn't be tolerated. Her brother, having heard about it from my aunt, seemed furious and said he would come to pick her up immediately. Their sibling reunion after several years turned out to be a disaster. That seemed to have directed her anger towards us. My aunt, who had been battling with Mom, was unusually replaced by my uncle, who said,
"Let me handle this."
He is usually very kind, so I wondered if he could handle Mom, but as soon as he took over, his expression became fierce.
He's scarier than me when he gets angry.
My aunt whispered to me,
"Hey, cut it out. If you're so eager to talk, I'll tell you. I'll make you apologize in front of Madison. Sick or not, it doesn't matter. Be ready."
My uncle yelled, and then apparently Mom hung up the phone.
She hung up.
After the call, my uncle was his usual self, laughing. It seems true that people who rarely get angry can be frightening when they do. After that, Mom was forcibly taken to her brother's house. It turned out that her illness was something that could be cured quickly, and she was able to leave the hospital soon. Mom, who had planned a lavish life with her affair partner, was taken to her brother's farm and had to help with farm work while living there. She initially resisted the farm work, but under her brother's pressure, she begrudgingly worked. Of course, she couldn't afford to buy luxury brands anymore and had to use second-hand clothes given by the villagers. As for me, it seems that all the paperwork was completed, and I was able to become the child of my aunt and uncle. They threw a celebration party for me, and I laughed more than ever before. And surprisingly, I found out that next year I would have a little brother or sister, which made me very happy. I resolved to cherish my family. From the bottom of my heart, that's what I think.
I'm sorry, but you can't make a withdrawal. What? It seems there's only about $1 in your bank account. Wait, there's got to be a mistake.
How did it come to this? I was trying to withdraw money from my bank account for my son, Mike's tuition fees. Then I received a call from the credit card company.
Hello? We're seeing a charge of $30,000 here. What?
I exclaimed louder than before. Other customers in the vicinity turned to look, wondering what was going on.
Ma'am? Can you give me a moment? I need to check something.
I had a suspicion. After hanging up, I called someone else.
Did you use my credit card?
Yeah, about that. My parents wanted a new car, so I bought it for them in full. My husband Dylan, unapologetically laughing over the phone. All the savings for Mike's education.
Do you even realize what that money was for?
Come on, don't make such a fuss.
It's not like it was for anything important.
Hearing those words, something inside me broke.
You better be responsible for your own words. What? It's your fault for leaving your credit card around like that. Don't joke. Even if it's for your parents, you can't just recklessly spend like that. You have no right to tell me that.
Realizing arguing was futile, I decided on a final course of action.
Fine. Hey, wait a sec.
I hung up and immediately called the police. Dylan had to face the consequences. There was no way I could forgive him. I'm Emily. 45 years old, working in sales at a cosmetics company. My family consists of my husband Dylan and our 18-year-old son Mike. Our relationship started through work and evolved from there.
Emily, do you plan to get married in the future? What? Where has this come from?
I was just thinking, since you're so beautiful. If we're talking about looks, Dylan, you're quite handsome yourself. Oh, come on. We were both 26, thinking about marriage. Such conversations became frequent, and before we knew it, we were dating. A year later, we got married. Dylan wanted me to be a housewife after marriage, but I wanted to continue working.
Since I'm going to keep working, how about we just merge our bank accounts? That might get confusing. Let's keep them separate. Really?
Well, I'll be the breadwinner, paying rent and groceries. You can handle the savings.
Okay then.
Living together revealed aspects of Dylan I hadn't noticed before. Discussing it with friends, they said it's often the case, which somewhat reassured me. Things were going well after that, so I didn't say anything too strongly to Dylan. Things went on like this until Mike was born a year into our marriage.
We really need to cut back on unnecessary expenses now that we have a child.
I was on maternity leave and decided to talk to Dylan when he got back from work. I thought that if I talked to him, he would understand.
You think I'm wasting money? I should be able to spend as I like sometimes. Of course, but my worry is that you're overspending. Ugh.
Dylan sighed, looking annoyed. I was worried if we were okay, being this way so early in our marriage. But the problem didn't solve itself as time went by. And the issues weren't just with Dylan.
My parents are coming over to visit soon. What? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Sorry, I totally forgot.
This was just the beginning. I was constantly being put in difficult situations by Dylan and my in-laws. And then, the following Saturday, my in-laws arrived. Hello, Emily. Long time no see. Please come in. Don't mind if I do. At first glance, the parents-in-law seemed quite caring, and to others, there seemed to be no issues. However, perhaps more like a parent and child, they were lax about managing money.
How about we go shopping today, since it's a special occasion? Shopping? Yes. There's something I've been wanting for a long time.
But since Mike was in a bad mood and wouldn't stop crying no matter what, I ended up staying home.
All right, I'm counting on you to house sit.
With that, Dylan left with the parents-in-law. When they returned about 2 hours later, I was surprised to see them.
What's with all those bags in your hands? Oh, these? Yeah, I guess I bought too much.
Moreover, the bags were printed with logos of famous brands.
We're back. Sorry for making you house sit. Oh, no, it's okay.
Mother-in-law Rebecca was also carrying bags similar to Dylan's. Then, sitting on the sofa, she started spreading out her purchases as if to show them off to me. I didn't own that much myself. Moreover, since getting married, I've been trying to save money, keeping the future in mind.
Thank you for today. I can't believe you bought me so much.
It's nothing to worry about. It's just filial piety. Plus, I got a lot too. Watching this exchange was almost headache-inducing.
Oh, right. This is for Mike.
Saying this, Dylan pulled out a piece of baby clothing from a brand.
We had to make you house sit, after all.
Father-in-law Bert said with a laugh. I had hoped they might have bought something for me too, but there was nothing, and Dylan and his parents seemed satisfied looking at their own things. The day ended with a family dinner and we said goodbyes, but there was another chance to meet the in-laws at a family gathering. Welcome. Thank you for having us today. Even I, who wasn't much interested in brands, could tell Rebecca was dressed head to toe in brand name clothes. You always seem so plain. This was said while we were drinking coffee in the living room. From the moment she arrived, Rebecca had been looking at me, and this was why.
I've been meaning to say this, but you need to take care of your appearance more.
Then Dylan joined the conversation.
What are you talking about?
About Emily being plain. Oh, that.
Yeah, I've been meaning to say same.
The reason for my plain appearance was because I had more important things to worry about than my own looks. Dylan freely spent money, but I was the one covering the costs from our savings. He didn't realize that our current lifestyle was thanks to that. During my 2-day stay at my in-laws, I had to put up with Rebecca's sarcasm the whole entire time. And upon returning home, Dylan started it with my appearance again.
Like Mom said at home earlier, you should take more care of your appearance. It's embarrassing for me too.
Unable to bear it any longer, I vented all my pent-up frustrations.
If you're embarrassed, then think a bit more about how you spend money. I've been saying this for a long time. Are we going to have that talk again? I'm tired of hearing it. Tired of hearing it? With Mike growing older, are you planning to keep living like this? Life is going on just fine, isn't it?
Dylan laughed and headed to the bedroom. Life went on like this, and before we knew it, Mike had become a junior in high school. Then, one summer afternoon, Dylan came up to me.
I have something I want to discuss.
Dylan wanting to discuss something was a bad omen. And as expected, my fears were confirmed.
A discussion? Sort out your money issues yourself. Haven't said anything yet, have I? Can you pay for some living expenses instead?
Had Dylan not listened to me at all? I was so astounded I didn't want to talk anymore.
By the way, what are you short on? What I'm short on? Everything. Everything? It hasn't even been a week since payday. Just help me out, okay?
Dylan didn't seem to feel any remorse towards me. Reluctantly, I convinced myself it was necessary for our livelihood.
This is the last time, okay?
Yeah. Even though we were still talking, Dylan was looking at his mobile phone, seemingly bored. And that wasn't all.
I'm going out for a bit. Wait. Where are you going? Don't need to tell you. I'll be back by night.
And then Dylan left the house. I was left alone in the living room, stunned. Honestly, I've considered divorce more than once or twice. But I didn't because of Mike. While I was thinking about this, Mike came.
Huh? Where's Dad?
He just went out.
Maybe he's gone to buy something again? You think so too?
Whenever Dylan went out alone without saying where he was going, he invariably ended up buying unnecessary things. As I sighed, Mike made a suggestion.
Why don't you just let it go? What?
I've been watching all this time, and it's clearly too much.
But you're still here. I can't do something so irresponsible. That's why I'm saying, once I graduate from college, I'll leave this house to work. Then, Mom, you can be free to do what you want.
Thank you. For Mike, who had been watching Dylan's reckless behavior, it must have been too much to tolerate. Mike's words were a relief to me. He was my son and we were a team. Dylan returned before dinner, as expected, with luxury items. If there was money to buy such things, it should be used for living expenses. I was too tired to even complain to Dylan. No matter what I said, he wouldn't listen and would do as he pleased. Sometime after I had covered Dylan's expenses.
Here. What's this? This is to cover what you paid for me the other day.
Saying that, Dylan handed me an envelope. Inside, there was money. Oh, thank you. I hadn't expected him to repay me so soon. When I checked the amount, it was $1,000. It wasn't enough to cover what I paid, but I still felt a little happy. But that brief joy soon turned into a nightmare.
All right, I'm taking this back. Hey, what are you doing?
Dylan snatched the envelope back from me and put it in his pocket.
I did pay you back, right? I'll need it for tomorrow. I don't understand what you're doing.
I was confused about what was happening. While I was in panic, Dylan continued.
Why are you surprised?
Look. Then Dylan handed me the envelope again, only to take it back. He repeated this a few times.
So, now I've paid back everything I owe you.
I had no energy left to argue back. It was like a child's way of pretending everything was settled.
If that's what you think, I won't lend you money again. Why does it come to that? I paid you back, didn't I? Forget it.
From that day, I grew to dislike even talking to Dylan. Whenever he asked for something, it was always about money. Even more troublesome were the in-laws. I thought they had been quiet lately, but then suddenly they contacted me.
We haven't received this month's allowance. What? Allowance? I haven't heard anything about it. That can't be. Dylan said you would start paying from this month.
It's too sudden. I can't.
We're in trouble too. We have payments to make. It's your problem, so sort it out. I need it by the day after tomorrow. Wait a minute, Rebecca.
She said what she wanted to say and just hung up. I was constantly troubled by this family. Just thinking about it gave me a headache. That night, I asked Dylan what was going on.
Rebecca called, but what's this about an allowance? They seemed a bit troubled, so I've been sending them money for a while. But why should I pay? I haven't heard anything about it. Oh, did I forget to mention? And you even told Rebecca that I would be making the deposit. Then just send the allowance.
However, I decided not to send the allowance. Nor did I contact the in-laws, ignoring whatever they said. Mike's exams were approaching, and I couldn't afford to focus on such things. Time passed, and Mike got accepted to his first choice of college.
Congratulations! You've been working hard for this. The real challenge starts now. Say something to him. Well done.
That was the only thing Dylan said without even looking at Mike.
Wait a minute.
I tried to say something to Dylan, but Mike stopped me. I guess Mike didn't have much expectation from Dylan either. Then trouble came when I went to the bank to pay Mike's tuition. When my number was called and I approached the counter, an unexpected incident occurred.
I'm sorry, but you cannot make a withdrawal. What? It seems there is only $1 in your bank account. Wait, there's got to be a mistake.
How did it come to this? I was just trying to withdraw money from the bank account for Mike's tuition payment. Then, a call came from the credit card company.
Hello? We have noticed some unfamiliar usage on your credit card. Do you have any idea about this? That can't be right. It has to be a mistake. We have a record of the usage. There's a $30,000 charge on your account. What?
I exclaimed louder than before. Other customers in the bank turned to look at me.
Ma'am? Sorry, could you give me a moment? I need to check something. Understood.
I had one suspicion in mind. I hung up and called someone.
Where are you now?
At home.
Why are you so panicky? Did you use my credit card?
There was a brief silence. Yeah, that. My parents wanted a new car, so I bought it for them in one go. Dylan laughed over the phone, without any sign of remorse. All the money I had saved for Mike's education.
Do you even realize what that money was for?
Come on, don't make such a fuss.
It couldn't have been for anything important.
Hearing those words, something inside me crumbled.
You better be responsible for your own words. What? Responsible? It's your fault for leaving your credit card out. Don't joke around. Even if it's for your parents, do you realize how stupid this is? I don't need to be lectured by you.
I realized it was futile to argue with Dylan. I decided to take the final step.
Fine then. Hey, wait.
I hung up the phone immediately and then contacted the police. Dylan would have to face the consequences. No matter what, I couldn't forgive this. When I got back home, I confronted Dylan.
You better pay back every penny you used without permission.
Sorry, I'm a bit busy right now.
What?
Dylan was getting ready to leave.
I told you I bought a car, right? They're treating me to dinner today. Is this really the time for that? We're not done talking yet. Then we can talk when I get back.
I'll be late if I stay now. Ignoring my attempts to stop him, Dylan was about to leave when I told him about notifying the police.
I just called the police.
He stopped in his tracks.
What did you say? Did I hear something about the police? It's not your imagination. What the hell did you do? It's obvious, isn't it? You used my credit card without permission. Taking someone's money like that is theft. Your money is mine too. I just used it. And now you're calling the police. What are you thinking? Anyways, pay back the full amount. And make sure you apologize to Mike too. Apologize? Why? Mike has nothing to do with this.
I sighed. Using the money for his own desires was just unbelievable.
That money you used was saved for Mike's entrance fees and tuition. But thanks to you, we can't even pay that now. Why didn't you tell me sooner? How could I expect you to do something this foolish?
Then he started blaming me.
Not realizing someone used your credit card, aren't you the foolish one?
My anger was rising.
Also, you've always looked down on me, haven't you? That's you. Don't you see me as anything more than a wallet?
What?
You've become such a troublesome woman.
I was about to utter the word divorce when Mike, who had been out, returned.
What are you doing? Mike. Another fight?
Give it a rest. His words were not directed at me, but at Dylan.
What's up? You got a complaint against me too?
It's not a complaint, it's a warning. If you keep this up, you'll regret it eventually.
Regret? You've become quite bold in talking back to Dad, haven't you?
Dylan even started snapping at Mike. I regretted ever marrying such a person.
Oh, right, I almost forgot to tell you. I'm going on a trip in a week. How can you be so selfish? I thought about taking you guys along, but changed my mind. Just stay home and behave.
Dylan laughed at us mockingly and left to buy things for his trip. Left behind, we looked at each other.
I'm sorry, Mike. Your tuition. So that's why you were fighting.
Now I couldn't even send him to college. Even though it was Dylan's fault, I wouldn't have been surprised if Mike blamed me. But instead of blaming, Mike was concerned about me.
It's not your fault, Mom. Dad's the one to blame. And it's not like I can never go to college.
I felt grateful to Mike for saying that, but was also filled with guilt. I decided I had to get revenge on Dylan to the end.
I need your help with something. Of course. I'm on your side, Mom.
So, we planned our strategy before Dylan returned. And then, in the morning a week later.
See ya. I'll be back the day after tomorrow.
I didn't even respond. What's with you?
At least say something. Oh, and I paid for this trip with your credit card.
Dylan left in a good mood. I wasn't even surprised to hear that.
Is he gone? Gone. Shall we start then?
Yes, let's. We packed up everything except Dylan's belongings. During this week, we had found a place to move to. We decided to move on the day Dylan went on his trip.
We're finally done. It took quite some time. Just need to get the movers now.
Soon the movers came. We left a note in the room and headed to the new apartment. I also decided to cancel the lease on the current apartment. I was the one who had originally signed the lease. Thus, a new life with Mike began.
I wonder what he'll think when he gets back. He'll probably panic. But whatever happens, I don't care.
Serves him right. The day Dylan was supposed to return from his trip arrived. Sure enough, there was a barrage of calls from Dylan. Curious about his reaction, I answered the phone.
Emily! Where are you? I don't think I need to tell you that. Stop joking around. I think you're the one who's joking.
Did you check the table?
The divorce papers?
Yes, those.
My name is already on them. Fine. Then we'll get divorced.
With that, Dylan hung up. The next day, Dylan sent a photo of the signed divorce papers. I felt relieved, but still had things to do. I immediately contacted a lawyer to get back the money he had used without permission. About a month later.
What do you mean move out?
A panicked call from Dylan came early in the morning.
It means just that. I signed the lease, after all. I can do whatever I want with it, right? I can't just accept that. Come back here now. That's impossible. We're divorced, remember? I thought it was time to say everything I wanted to Dylan. Also, I'm getting the money you used back through my lawyer. You did what? Yes. I don't need to hold back anymore. So, I'll do as I please. Who do you think allowed you to live like this? I certainly don't think it was thanks to you. Even over the phone, I could tell Dylan was furious. But his anger couldn't change the reality. Just get out of that house quickly. It's not yours anymore. You'll regret this. He hung up, but I wasn't bothered. In fact, I laughed out loud. What happened? Sorry. That was him just now. And what did he say? Of course, he was angry. Told me that I'd regret this. What's that supposed to mean? It's funny, isn't it? After that, Dylan, unable to do anything, had to leave the house. He truly got what he deserved. Apparently, Dylan moved back to his parents' house, but that was a mistake. Dylan's hell was far from over. The next day after Dylan contacted me, the lawyer informed me that we could formally recover the money. It looked like we could also claim compensation for all the trouble he had caused. How dare you do this to us? Huh? The call from Rebecca was full of complaints. Thanks to you, we're in trouble. We can't make our payments now. How are you going to fix this? That's unfortunate. But it's no longer my problem, and you'll have to resolve it on your end. You should pay in my place since it's your fault. Absolutely not. If you had any gratitude for the help we gave you, you should repay that kindness. I don't feel I owe you anything, so I'm fine. Goodbye. This time, I was the one to hang up. It was a truly liberating moment. This outcome should have been easy to predict. A family all lax about money was bound to collapse eventually. Blinded by immediate desires, they failed to see the reality of their situation. We finally got our money back. Yes, but we couldn't make the college payment in time. It's okay. I'll try again next year. Mike was incredibly positive. Seeing him like that lifted my spirits. Later, I heard that Dylan and his family, unable to pay their debts, filed for bankruptcy. They ended up losing their house and were left wandering with no assets. I don't even know where they live now. They filed for bankruptcy. Seems like it. It's their own responsibility. Well, it's not our concern anymore. Dylan was also interviewed by the police but was just questioned. The police couldn't intervene further. However, this incident reached his workplace, and Dylan was apparently fired. He'll probably regret this for the rest of his life. I'm determined to keep moving forward with Mike, working together as a team.